What's on my mind at the moment is the idea of living up to expectations. Because I've been examining, I've been confronted with expectations I didn't know I had. And this is not only expectations I have of myself, but it's the ones that I project that others have of me. And so it really, receiving some guidance from my teacher recently, I was very reactive internally, and I could see that it wasn't in proportion to the words that were said. So I could clearly see that I was blowing things out of proportion, or that my afflictions were running. And I took the time to actually let the emotionality arise and then try and hear it for what it was saying. And it was very interesting, the words that were kind of like screaming at me. It's like, what do you want from me? And this like petulant little child that was just confused with like expectations. And so it brought home to me, it's like I've really internalized from, who knows, parents, teachers, other significant people in my life, previous lives, I don't know where it comes from. But just this idea that I am meant to give something to others, to perform in a certain way, to fulfill a function. And so when people are relating to me, I'm interpreting that through that filter. So, you're wanting something from me, and to be a good student, a good friend, a good wife, a good anything, I have to fulfill this for you. And so then the people-pleasing stuff comes up. Fear comes up if I get any indication that I'm not living up to expectation. The mind goes crazy, tries to figure out like how do I fix this? How do I then figure out what you want from me so I can do it? And it's a mess. And it's really unpleasant, and it's not helpful, because it's so, going through this, it's so self-centered, and it's not helping me in my practice in terms of seeing things clearly, being able to receive guidance as it was intended, to having the mind in the Dharma, because it's just on this one, and what have I done wrong, and how do I fix it? And the mind just narrows. And so the misery of that became very clear. And so a few instances of receiving some guidance, having the mind freak out, trying to figure out why the mind is freaking out, was really helpful, just to bring it back. I'm like, what do I think people want from me? And how then do I let that influence how I relate to myself, how I relate to others? And to try and break that down, because I can really see that I think I have to fulfill certain expectations for others to be happy with me, or to value me, or for me to value myself. And to try and, it's like these, I think that that forms part of an identity as well. I think that's linked into identities around, I do this well, I perform this function, but just a broader world view of who I am meant to be in this world, or what my purpose day to day is, and trying to sincerely practice the Dharma, then having these expectations under the surface running my different actions is not in the Dharma, because it's very much eight worldly concerns. Fear of praise, fear of loss of reputation. Fear of praise. Well, that would be ideal. No, fear of blame, running after praise, fear of loss of reputation, wanting to have a good reputation, and big attachment to pleasant feelings and big aversion to negative, ripening of negative sensations. And Venerable Damshu's BBC recently talking about how we relate to our spiritual mentor was so helpful, and something that I've been thinking about for a while in terms of like, what is my teacher actually wanting from this relationship? For me to benefit, for me to attain full awakening, for me to exchange self with others, for me to realize emptiness, for me to be happy but in an enduring way. And that's so stretched so far beyond what my narrow mind can sometimes get locked into on a day-to-day basis. That it's really, when we are discussing this one topic, it's hard to keep that big picture in mind when we're talking about this one little thing. It's so easy to get wrapped up around that one thing that my ego is attached to, or So it's been helpful to try and see clearly what I've internalized, how I'm projecting that outwards, and then trying to break it down. Actually, I think breaking it down is in the future. I'm just trying to see it clearly now and to identify the reactivity so that it's not self-perpetuating. And to get more familiar with seeing the self-centered thought for what it is. And to see how unhappy and how misery-making it is. And that feeling, I'm getting more of a feeling of when I feel just locked into just this one, then the self-centered is running. It's like Venerable Jumpa's morning motivation today was so nice. It's like when we can just expand, like keep a really vast perspective, then it's just not about this one, and how much relief there is in that. So maybe investigate what expectations we've internalized for ourselves, what we think others expect from us. Because in my own experience, I'm seeing very clearly how this is really, if it's not driving my actions, it's driving my interpretations, which I think necessarily flow on to what I do during the day. And we do this so we can actually have this space to have the Dharma at the front of our mind.